I've been asked to speak on the lessons from other networks. Oh, there it says, from other networks for health and wealth innovators. Now, I've been lucky enough to have started a few networks. I helped start Cambridge Network with Alec Brose and Herman Hauser. I helped start a thing called Cambridge Wireless, which is actually what I'm going to talk a bit about, because it's the closest that I've experienced to this. Cambridge Angels, on the board of Cambridge Ahead, got in on the ground with there, and a thing called the Centre for Science and Policy, which is one of my day jobs, which is part of the University of Cambridge, and we connect up scientists and engineers, other experts with people in government, and we have, just to give you an idea of the scale of that, we have about 900 experts and academics. We have 200 policy fellows and others sitting within government. And so far we've engineered 4,000 meetings between them. So it's a fairly powerful network. We had about 1/3 of the top of the civil service for dinner Friday a week ago in Cambridge. So give you some idea about where that sits. But out of all of those networking organisations, Cambridge Wireless is the closest. Cambridge Wireless has about 400 members. The market capitalisation of those members is $1.5 trillion. So it's getting on for comparable, although you wouldn't compare it if you were an economist, with the GDP of the UK. It has grown from, it's had some fairly catastrophic events in its past. It used to be called Cambridge 3G. We rebooted it, called it Cambridge Wireless. All the operators left. We found a wonderful Chief Executive Officer, Soraya Jones, who's actually sitting in the audience here. And we built that organisation from the ground up. We now have about turnover of about £630,000. And on that turnover, we employ about 10 staff. We run an annual conference, and we have 22 special interest groups. And this is the core point about how this particular networking organisation works. Those interest groups are championed by founder members who come to us and say, we're really interested in healthcare, because we've got something in healthcare, or we're interested in defence, or near-field communication. So the Oyster card, for example, is part of that discourse, or anything to do with mobile. And we then help them operate. We help them with the administration, booking rooms, doing all those kinds of things, all the badging, all the other bits and pieces. They put together the agenda. We then help enable that. Those 22 special interest groups attract between 40 and 90 attendees. They run 1 or 2 events a year, which means that the organisation is running about an event a week. And the scores on that, and I won't spare Soraya's blushes on this, the scores on that, on the 1 to 5 scale, generally end up at about 4.6 or 4.8. So what we've done is we've built that up with volunteers from our membership. Don't pay them anything, they just get glory. We built that up on the basis of what the members want, responding to the industry. Now, it's a Darwinian process. If it succeeds, it succeeds. We put more resource behind it. If it doesn't, we stop it. Relatively few SIGs have actually stopped so far, which is why we've got 22, having started with 5. But the other point about this bottom up is it then enables you to do some other magic things, a bit like the kind of, once you start to digitize your tickets, you can start to do other things we weren't necessarily expecting. So when we organize our annual conference, each individual SIG can, within the theme, put forward what they want to do with an hour at that conference, and then the conference literally self-assembles. Because we've distributed the power to the organisation, we've distributed it to the special interest groups, we can then put on a conference which generally closes and operates a waiting list some 3 to 5 weeks ahead of the actual date of the conference. Although we'll see, we're moving down to London, we've got a bigger venue, let's see if that works this year. Now, why am I telling you all this detail? Well, the point about networking organisations is the devil is in the detail. The most important point is, how do you get your members operating and contributing because you, as a central organisation, cannot possibly cope. This is Encyclopaedia Britannica racing against Wikipedia. Wikipedia is going to win. There is no doubt about it. You have to devolve that responsibility, you have to have systems that do that, and then you have to enable people to do that with the least possible friction and don't get people having to do administration. Because if they wanted to do administration, they'd be in the central unit. So what you want to do is build up from that. So I've got a few lessons about this, which is firstly, grow at a steady pace from a low base. It's almost a tongue twister, isn't it? Grow at a steady pace from a low base. One of the worst things you can have, it's a bit like a startup, and going back to David Connell's point about soft starts versus hard starts, one of the worst things you can have is a lot of money. It's really bad. Really, really bad for you. You need less money than you think. These networking organisations can be done, Cambridge Wireless, as I just described, running a meeting a week, drawing in probably on an average about 60 or 70 people, is operated with an annual conference as well, which takes up a big chunk of that, and discovering startups, and a second conference that we're operating with a budget of £630,000 a year, and 400 members, and essentially a global operation. And we're running, by the way, we're running these things in different areas in the United Kingdom as well at the moment. You need less money than you think. Government funding is really bad for you. It's really, really, really bad for you. Especially if you get government funding and there's no need to go out to your members and raise money, because then you've broken every single bit of that empowerment. Why would you listen to members? Because you're getting money in from the government. Why would you construct a system that is devolved responsibility? Because the government is asking you to tick boxes and fulfill certain criteria that they have decided without any reference to your members. The whole thing, when you get government money, be very, very careful. There is a way to get government money, and it's a much healthier one. It is you have an existing organisation, and then you bid for money, and you get money on the basis of projects. Well, that's fine, because that's closer to you responding to a client. Again, what David Connell said about the necessity to have clients is really important. So it won't surprise you to know that my main point is you grow an organisation by doing what your members want, and in particular if you have champions who are willing to give a little bit more time and help organise things, those are the people that you need to coalesce around. It's focusing on enabling the network, devolving power and responsibility, giving it away. These things don't work by having central control, other than, of course, things like kite marks or standards. Those things are very important. Or if you have to organise an event, providing the administration, providing the customer relationship management system, providing the central databases, all of those platform things that organisations can do, but devolve the power and the responsibility. And get money in from other sources, because in the end, the test of whether you're delivering value in an organisation is, are people prepared to put their hands in their pockets and support you? Because if they're not prepared to do that, well, then it's let's go and apply the resources elsewhere. Now, I don't want to be negative. Glass half full, glass half empty. I'm an engineer. I would say the glass was designed wrongly in the first place. So, actually, inherently, I'm an optimist, and anybody who started a few businesses has to be an optimist. Actually has a very poor grip on reality, is a better way of expressing it. But nevertheless, as I said, with Cambridge Network, with Cambridge Wireless, Cambridge Ahead, Cambridge Angels, or the Centre for Science and Policy, the lessons that I've just talked about that being bottom-up, and about mobilising resources based on merit, and not being beholden to government, where the central authority will not know what it is you are really struggling with, are the important messages for, or the important lessons for other networks. And I offer that as a gift to you all. I'm not in this business. I've listened this morning very carefully to what goes on. I've been... Tim, right at the beginning, you mentioned Kingston Hospital. Kingston Hospital is a catastrophe masquerading as a hospital. We are here because we want the NHS to succeed. That's why I'm here. Networks are a great way to do it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David.